Hello and welcome to another episode of Walking with Walfinch. We're here at the IFA, the International Franchise Association's annual convention in Las Vegas. The Vegas series, here we go.
Go, go, here we go. Go, go, now here we go. Now, go, go, here we go.
You ain't never ever seen nothing like this.
Go, go, here we go. Go, go, now here we go. Now, go, go, here we go.
You ain't never ever seen nothing like this.
Never have you ever seen something like me.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Walking with Walfinch. This has never happened before. We've got John Francis,
Yeah.
And I got confused because I call him Johnny Franchise,
Yeah.
on the show again. So I had John on, he was one of the first people on Walking with Walfinch last year
Right.
at the Phoenix IFA, and here we are again.
Well,
thank you for coming on.
Well, you're welcome.
Nice
Thanks
to
for
see
having
you.
me back, man.
Oh.
I appreciate the opportunity to
Pleasure
tell
is
some
very much all
stories.
mine.
Sure, yeah.
So John, for those of us who don't know you, and I think there's only a
Sure.
couple, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in a franchise business, hair salons. Actually, this is my dad, was Joe Francis. He was a barber who franchised barbershops in the 60s, before I was even born.
Wow.
So early pioneer in franchising and really changed the industry of the salon industry, created an opportunity for barbers to become business owners. And more than just own the shop you work in, because that was the standard, he created a model where a barber could own multiple barbershops.
Yeah.
No one had ever really done that at the time. And long story short, it was a lot of work, certainly not easy or quick, but it worked. And he developed one brand. It became a national brand in the 70s. And we developed two other brands in the 80s. In the 90s, we did some acquisitions, did some international work.
Amazing.
My dad passed away in 94 from cancer, and my mother took over as chairman and doubled the size of the company in 5 years.
Oh, she went from like 500 to 1,000 units? Is that
Yeah,
what you
we
said?
sold our business in 1999 with just over 1,000 stores.
Wow.
So that was
Wow.
before private equity was a big deal in
Yeah.
franchise.
Yeah.
It was a great outcome. We had a lot of fun.
I imagine.
And, so I grew up in that family business. It was
Yeah.
a franchise company. So I never cut hair. I never got that far.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot about franchising.
Well, you
And,
seem to be the oracle in franchising.
Well,
You know,
I keep showing up, right? And,
no, truly. I mean, over the years, you've been very kind to speak to me and
Yeah.
guided me on a few situations. And
Yeah.
I've heard you speak multiple times. Anyone I speak to about you, it's that sort of same consistent message I get back of, yes, John is a guy to speak to.
Yeah.
He gets it. He knows franchising. He understands the emotional heartbeat of the situation
Oh,
as well.
Yeah.
Which
So
is-
I grew up in that environment, and we sold our business, and I went on to do 5 more brands on my own after that, and then I sold my last operating company about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And so since then, I've been focusing on board work as a board of directors, board of advisors, some coaching, some speaking, just trying to help other people. I really don't want to buy anything. I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to run anything on the day-to-day.
Yeah.
So I've managed to create the opportunities where I can help other people with the franchise business. I can make an impact but not get involved.
Yeah.
And so far it's working.
Which is also where Zor Forum comes in, I think, right?
Yes.
It's,
Zor Forum is one of the things I'm working hard on now is a mastermind group for franchisors.
You're right.
So we meet once a month for 3.5 hours as a group and talk about whatever challenges they're having and
yeah.
help solve each other's problems, hold each other accountable. And
Amazing.
my job is to make those members just a little bit uncomfortable so they grow.
Which
And,
is,
we solve problems.
and that really is the piece, It's,
Yeah.
John, the thing I really wanted to talk to you today about was change management.
Right.
And it's a really difficult thing as a franchisor,
Sure
you know,
can
or
be.
as any entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So if we talk about it from the franchisor side, if you had a franchisor that you were advising that was going through some big change management stuff and needed to communicate that to his network or their network, what would you suggest to them? Like, where would that thinking process go?
Yeah, I guess my first thought is that change is inevitable.
Yeah.
it's better if you create it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's better to be proactive and create the change rather than being reactive and have it happen.
Yeah.
And so you're responding. So when a brand is going through change, hopefully it's something they desire. They're not being forced to change. They're being proactive and thinking about what it is. The real message in communication has got to be the why.
Right.
People need to understand why this is happening, why it's important, and why I need to do whatever it is I need to do, depending on the role in the organization.
That's really interesting. So if you're, sort of committing to change to franchisees, it's really getting into the why.
They got to understand the why, and then the how and the what and the when and where and all the other details can follow. But if you don't articulate a clear reason and clear motivation, people are going to resist.
Yeah.
And even if they don't resist, even if it's unconscious resistance, they won't embrace the change. So communication is critical.
Right.
And then the franchisor really needs to have it internalized. You as a franchisor, you need to have your whole team understand this.
Yeah.
And then I would say create the talking points, anticipate the reaction of franchisees or vendors or suppliers and customers, or whoever it might impact.
Yeah.
And be prepared to answer their questions and provide them that perspective.
And so what would that delivery process look like?
Well, I guess it kind of depends on the degree of change. If it's a major change, let's say a rebrand, I mean, that's a big change.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money. It's going to affect everybody. So depending on the scale or size or shape of the change, the bigger it is, the longer you need to communicate over and over, multiple times, multiple media. You need to make sure that people understand what it is, why it's happening, and what their piece of that puzzle is going to be.
So, and that is really interesting. And actually, it's a really interesting you talk about rebrands. I mean, we just went through one, and it was a huge piece of work. I think we were in for just shy of about 1,000 hours of time that went into this, as a business, and which is like a phenomenal amount
That's a lot of work.
Amount of time. And I think, one of the things that I really sort of understood was getting into that why, but then also really communicating it.
Yeah.
Should we walk over here to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
And really sort of getting into that communication piece, and whether that's FAQs, whether that's really making something super easy for franchisees, really understanding that bit. I just wanted to show the viewers this. I mean, this is super cool, right?
This is my mom and dad. This is my parents. They're co-founders of the brand. The Barbers was our holding company, our original brand. And in 1999 was the year we sold our business.
And they were the first people on the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I mean, that is...
As a husband and wife team. It's pretty fantastic.
I mean, that is...
this never gets old.
That's really remarkable. It's... and you look remarkably similar to your dad as well.
I've got a beard now. It's starting to look... I'm about his age, so yeah.
Wow. Oh,
yeah,
well,
it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. That is super cool. So... Should we
go that way? Yeah.
So John, one of the things I really sort of took away from that process was just over communicate with franchisees.
Totally.
In lots of different
repeated methods, repeated modes. Messaging has to be the same message or consistent messaging. Yeah. But it has to be repeated, and like I said, internalize it with your whole team. Yeah. So it's not just leadership; it's the whole organization that understands what's happening.
And how many times does a message need to be repeated? Do you think before
10?
Yeah.
10 times maybe. And again, depending on the degree of change or the impact of the change.
Yeah.
The bigger it is, the longer it's going to take.
And and in different. Platforms as well, or?
Yes,
so
most definitely.
What would that sort of look
in
like?
person is always the best.
Yeah.
When you can communicate with someone like in person, they're going to understand. You can read their body language. You can anticipate their questions and try to include that in the material.
And how do you feel about Zoom as opposed to in person?
Well, Zoom is effective, but not as effective.
You can't see what the hands are doing.
Yeah, and you can't. It's easy to get distracted when you're on a Zoom.
Yeah.
Phone calls, things in writing. Videos. I'm thinking of different situations that I've been through as a franchisor when we were implementing different programs or changes in getting that messaging over and over and over, and then refining that message as you get feedback from people. When they get hung up or they're not sure, you know, or they ask questions, build that information into your next version of the messaging.
Yeah.
So it just becomes more and more clear.
And to survey them along the process.
Yeah,
maybe.
and they just eliminate uncertainty.
Yeah.
So as a franchisor, that's critical. As a franchisee, you're implementing change in your business. Again, kind of the same principle applies. You need to hopefully make that change proactively, not reactively. And then communicate the change, the why. This is why are we doing this? Why is it important? Why, you know, have that answer very clearly understood. And then help your franchisees or help the franchisees' staff understand what their role is.
Yeah.
Because they don't live it every day like you do as a franchisor or as a franchisee. Your employees are there to do their job and hopefully do a great job. But if they can really understand it and internalize it, and they'll do a better job of implementing that change.
I think that's really interesting, you know, making sure that they've understood. Because often and that's anyone, you know, whether it's a franchisee, an employee, you know, your spouse, you know.
Yeah, children.
You know, children.
I've got teenagers at home.
You just talk at people, right?
Making it real. Sometimes we use examples or analogies or tell stories.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people are fearful of change, you know, because it's uncertainty, and most people don't really embrace that.
Yeah.
So sometimes I can use an example, say, well, you know, this is similar to the change we did maybe 2 years ago when we moved from here to there or whatever it was. So let them know that, you know, we went through that, we survived, and we're better for it, and so here we go again.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, like I said earlier, you know, change is inevitable. It's going to happen. But it's better if you can create it and do it on your own terms, on your own timeline, and proactively.
I think that proactively piece is really interesting as well. You know, it's often things will happen to us in business. You know,
Man. Well, it's competition, it's the market, it's regulations. I mean, there's lots of things that can force you to make changes. Sometimes you want to wait and let someone else go first.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
And wait and see how that impacts their brand or their business or their team, and then use that lesson and adapt your own process to do it that much better.
And you know, I remember reading Greg Nathan's work around change management, which I think is really interesting. For anyone going through that process, I would really recommend it. And there's a whole sort of almost like a grieving process that people go through.
Yes,
through
it's
change,
true.
you know.
It's similar to that. Again, depends on the degree of change.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's interesting when we're talking about that change management piece. I think there was like a 9 steps or something. I think that.
Yeah, Greg Nathan is a great resource.
Yeah.
I like him. I respect him. He's just tremendous. He's got a lot of good material for franchisors.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the details of his program, but you know, he explains it from a psychological point of view, which is really what matters.
It's so true,
People
isn't
have
it?
to understand it, internalize it, and then they're able to execute.
And so where have you seen change happen badly for franchisee or franchisee?
Oh, acquisitions.
Really?
Yeah. We did 4 acquisitions when I was a franchisor.
Right.
We bought different brands, and we got better at it every time we did it, but it wasn't always smooth.
Yeah.
And I think the thing I'm thinking of now was we bought a brand. It was a nice size system, 150 salons. We bought the whole thing.
Wow.
And it was my project. I was the lead on the project. So we set out on a road show, right? In those days, you're going to visit these 5 cities and bring all the franchisees in and talk to them about, well, here we are, and here's who we are, and here's what we're going to do, and everything else. What we had underestimated was they didn't choose us.
Yeah.
We bought their company, and now we're their franchisor.
Yeah.
But they really, they could have bought our franchise when they did, but they didn't.
Yeah,
they bought that brand.
They chose not to. Yeah.
So now we're the franchisor. Well, we assumed they were going to embrace it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah.
We're bigger, stronger, more capable. But we didn't. We underestimated the emotional connection they had to their old brand.
Yeah.
And of course, we didn't have that emotional connection to the old brand. It was we were interested in them as franchisees and their business and them as individuals, but we had kind of underestimated that emotional connection. So the first meeting on this road show, we had our slides, we had our materials, and we're going through explaining everything, and we could feel the tension just rising in the room. And there were maybe 30 or 40 franchisees. There were 3 or 4 of us from the corporate team.
Yeah.
And we're going through our stuff, and so we did a timeout, and we said, what's going on here? Someone talk to us. And one of the franchisees leaders stood up and said, well, you don't get it. We didn't buy you, you bought us. We don't necessarily know you, we don't trust you, we don't like you. We're upset with this deal. Oh, well, okay. So we kind of did a timeout, took a couple steps back, and we gave them more of the background of who we are, where we come from, why we do what we do, how we do what we do, and laid that foundation to create trust, where we had assumed the trust was going to be there. So that meeting ended better. Wasn't great, but it was better, because at least we recognized it was off. We went and did 5 more, and it was all better. Because
you learned from that.
We built in that factor into the next one, and we got more feedback, and we improved it again. By the end of the tour, everything was okay.
Yeah.
But that first meeting with that first group of owners was really an eye-opener. And I felt kind of silly, like, how did we miss that?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
We forgot what it was like to be a franchisee.
But it's so easy to do, right?
Well, we were focused on, here's who we are, here's what we can do for you, we're so excited, and blah, blah, blah. And they didn't care about any of that.
Nice.
What they really wanted to know is, who are you and can I trust you?
And on the flip of that, where was the best meeting that you've ever had? When you delivered change yourself. What was, can you recall a story for around that?
Yes, when we sold our business.
Right.
Because now that was kind of the flip side of the transaction. Instead of us being the buyer, we were the seller.
Right.
So we made phone calls to our franchisees. It was a big deal, right? We had a lot of owners, a lot of stores, and so the executive team made a list of owners, and we started making phone calls. Hey, Aslam, nice to see you, man.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
How are you?
I'm good. We're doing an interview right now. See the camera?
Wave for the camera. Yeah.
Sorry, Aslam. I'll see you later, man. I'll see you
never know what I
later. You're
would do.
looking good, man. Good to see you. He had a double lung transplant.
Oh, wow.
You imagine that?
I mean, a double lung.
Double lung transplant.
I can't.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Should we?
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, so now we're selling our business.
Right.
And we're calling our franchisees proactively to say, look, here's the news. Here's why we did this. Here's what's in it for you. Here's what to expect.
Yeah.
Because we had done it 4 times. We were the acquirer, and then at the end we were being acquired. So all that experience of doing those at multiple acquisitions really paid off, because then when we did it the other way, our people were better prepared.
And that was, again, delivering lots of information to these guys.
Yeah.
Right? Really sort of.
Yeah, and it was they didn't expect it. Of course, nobody does.
Yeah.
And it took a few weeks, but we got through all that.
Yeah.
And there was no real, my thing was, I'm on the phone, I'd call the owner, say, hey, it's Johnny, here's what's happening. It's gonna be okay. If you got any questions, call me back.
Yeah.
Boom. And they knew, because we had such a deep level of trust, they knew that if I said it's going to be okay, and if you got questions, call me, that's all I need to know.
And that's it, that trust piece.
Yeah.
And that comes up time and time again, doesn't it?
Yes,
in franchising,
especially the relationships they have to be built on trust, and you got to earn that trust.
Yeah.
You can lose it in seconds.
And that's actually so
it's
true.
delicate, you know?
My father said something to me as a child. He said, it takes 20 years to build, a reputation, but it takes 20 seconds to ruin that.
Yeah,
and it's the
so
same
true.
with trust and franchising, and it's the same in all walks of life, right?
I think so, yeah. But especially in franchise, because the franchisees are putting everything they've got into that business, and you've got to understand that and embrace that and respect that.
It's
and
that respect
you got
piece,
to earn that trust over and over and over.
Yeah.
Consistent, and it's hard. I'm thinking of a time when we were hiring new people who were new to the franchise world, and they didn't really understand all that. So we put into our onboarding for new employees, not only like a history of the company and, so they know kind of where they're stepping in, what's got us here, but really a foundation on franchising.
Yeah.
So they could understand the relationship factor because it's so critical.
Yeah.
And it's different in a non-franchise business. If you're a manufacturer or a construction company or something of that nature, it's a different relationship. But in franchising, those relationships are so critical. So it became an important part of how we did what we did, is help these people understand this is the business we're in. It wasn't hair salons, it was franchising.
And that's actually so true. When I talk to my franchising colleagues in the UK, and whether they're selling car parts or home care, it doesn't really matter.
No.
Our problems are the same because our sector is the same.
It's true. And
actually, in many ways, I resonate with that in one camp, and then the home care guys in a different camp, but they're two different businesses.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah, it is. And that's where I think I have the most fun doing the work that I do. I get to work with all kinds of brands, franchise systems of all shapes and sizes. But to me, they're really all the same.
Yeah.
It's the same patterns, the same issues, the same situations, different names, different brands, but ultimately, in a lot of cases, it's so very familiar. So I can short circuit their mistakes and say, if you don't do this, you're gonna do that, and then this is gonna happen, and here's your future. So let's miss that and go this way instead, and here's why and how and when and everything. So it's a way to, I feel lucky because I can help people not only recover from mistakes, but avoid the mistakes in the first place.
And it's that precautionary stuff that is particularly useful.
Very valuable. Wouldn't you rather miss a landmine than have to deal with it after?
Well, this is where having mentors really comes in.
Yes.
And I think, being able to, and I thank you very much, because being able to pick up the phone to someone like yourself and just say, hey, Johnny, I'm about to do this, what do you think? And you sort of just reel off the top of your head 3 things. And like, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. Well, and that's I've literally got a lifetime of experience. I grew up in a franchise and I've done a lot. I like to say I'm not a know-it-all, but I'm a share-it-all.
Yes,
so I don't mind sharing my experience. I don't mind sharing some better questions. Make people think a bit more, a little deeper, in a different dimension of, you really have to understand the impact of the decisions you make have a ripple effect across the brand.
Yeah. And actually, it's really people's lives, I think, that really it directly impacts. So having thought about it and thinking about the impact, I think, is so important.
And I would say the other piece, is give people time and space to process that change. When you're leading the change, you've thought about it, you've done the analysis, you've developed the program, and you're ready to put it out there. You're 2 miles ahead of the audience who's hearing it for the first time. That was the brand I told you when we did the acquisition, the first meeting. We were miles ahead of them. They didn't know what to expect, and what we learned is we went too far too fast. And we didn't give them the time and space, the opportunity to absorb and process, so that then they could say, oh, okay, well that makes sense.
And how much time is the right amount of time in your experience? For big change.
Weeks, months, sometimes. So we pushed out a lot of deadlines, and we had in there, well, this will take 2 weeks, this will take 2 months, this will take 2 quarters. Well, we dissolved a lot of that, changed it. If you're interested, you can go this fast. If you're hesitant, you can go this speed. And if you're reluctant, well, we're going to force you to do it, you've got a longer. So we would adjust and moderate those expectations based on the franchisee's ability to absorb and process and then execute the change.
Wonderful. And Johnny, you'll remember from last time, the one question I ask at the end of these things is, what is that one actionable item that someone can do to help them move towards that goal of $1 million?
Wow. One thing, ask for help. And there's people like me, but I think there's a lot of other people like me who are willing to share. The franchise community, we're here, you saw, there's a ton of people here, and most everyone is willing to try to help each other. It's a genuine community that looks out for each other, even if we're competitors. I'd rather have a franchisor win than tarnish franchising as a way of doing business. So my advice is ask for help.
That's wonderful.
You can talk to me, you can talk to you. There's lots of folks around the industry who are more than willing to share and try to offer some advice.
Thank you so much. That is brilliant advice from you, as always. Thank you. And
Thank you.
A real pleasure, Johnny. And, until next time.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Walking with Walfinch, the Vegas series. See you soon.